Hi, this is Jim from Vaudevisuals. I'm here with Senior Pedro J, Rosado Jr., whose new show coming up soon is called Mama, the Ogre, and Little Pedrito. And this show is very autobiographical, obviously, and it has a lot to do with the nationality of your heritage. And let's just hear about how you came about to discovering to do this show, and then a little bit about the show.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Jim. The way we discovered the show was I work with this woman. Her name is Alice J. Klugers. She's a choreographer, director, composer, and actually she's a huge fan of yours. She loves your work, and she says that she tells everybody that you've taken the best performance picture of her ever. So we're back. We're both fans of yours.
That's nice. Thank you.
We were rehearsing a show that we performed in May in 2023 at Valerie Green, the choreographer space in Queens, Green Space LIC. Alice is doing a lot of her versions of fairy tales with the female characters as older women. So she plays Rapunzel as an older woman, Alice in Wonderland as an older woman. This was called Rapunzel Rants. She had me read out of a book from this guy named Bruno Bettelheim.
Yep.
His book is named The Uses of Enchantment.
Brilliant book.
The Importance. It's a great book.
Yeah.
The Importance and the Meaning of Fairy Tales.
Yeah.
And he has an analysis of Jack and the Beanstalk. We were just fooling around one day. She had me open the book, read any passage. I happened to fall upon a passage that really hit home, and I didn't understand why. Then she said, why don't you just move with your feelings and rant? Respond. I started moving, I started ranting, she didn't stop me. And then I would keep on picking passages, and all this thing just came out of me that I had no idea was buried deep down. We realized, this has nothing to do with Rapunzel, and it really needs to be a piece all on its own. And then we figured out, hey, we got to take a deep dive into the Puerto Rican culture, the whole history, colonization, the first native indigenous people, the Taínos, would be super important to this piece. So that's basically how the piece came about. And if it wasn't for her and fairy tales, we wouldn't be here right now.
That's amazing. It's great to discover these things in situations that you're not like ready for the surprise of like, oh my gosh, what a revelation to find this moment that's so important and starts the whole show out of it, right?
Yes, and it became like a whole psychiatrist session, and then we started talking about it. And what was it like? How was your father's relation with you and the situation at home and versus Puerto Rico, mainland versus island? It's like, whoa, this is a lot.
Yes, well, there's a lot to it. I mean, there's a lot to of things that people don't understand about the heritage of Puerto Rico. Like you were in the notes that you sent me, you talked about the different indigenous countries that make up the people from Puerto Rico. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of the funniest things that most people don't understand about our DNA. We are such a mix of people. We're like the greatest beef stew you could ever imagine. Most people think we're just Taino and Spanish. No, we're English, Irish, African, German, Spanish, African, yes, Taino. For example, my family is Taino, Spanish, German stock. My family fell in love, lived, met, married, established our dynasty on the island. I want to show that the next generation of Puerto Ricans to come, Middle Eastern, East Indian people who are coming in, establishing their American dream in Puerto Rico. They could have moved to the mainland, but they decided, no, we want to stay on the island. Whatever that island attraction is, the smells, the sights, the sound, it made them stay. And it made them want to live their fantasy, their American dream on the island. It's very fascinating. It's the future.
That's very special. I mean, the fact that they're American citizens, but they're living on an island that's not connected, except for the fact that it's connected. Heritage-wise, right? I mean, it's like a separate island, but at the same time, it's part of the United States. So they have the privileges of being an American, but they're living on this beautiful tropical island, which is amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we have the same ideology, the same feeling, the same things that people of U.S. Guam go through, U.S. Samoa, U.S. Virgin Islands. People don't realize these are territories, and we're treated like what my father used to call a third-class citizen. We are mainlanders, immigrants, U.S. territories. And it is sad, and people don't get that. And people don't understand where our rage comes from, where our anger comes from. For example, if you're an islander, you are not allowed to vote for your president. We have no representation in Congress. We have puppet people who just sit there and look pretty, but they don't have any votes. They don't have any rights. They expect us to vote during the, caucuses and during the primaries, but we have to follow the lead of the mainland government. We
Oh,
cannot govern ourselves. We cannot decide on our own. For a long, long time, we couldn't even vote for our own governor. It was appointed by the president,
wow,
period.
wow.
We had no say. So, of course, you had people coming in that had no interest on the island, that a lot of times were stuck because of a job situation. So they weren't even connected to the people. We couldn't connect to them. At one point in the 1950s, late 40s, 50s, Puerto Ricans could not fly the Puerto Rican flag. It was illegal. You would be arrested or shot. It had to be American. Like, and these are things that people don't understand.
No
And they are like,
kidding.
why are you people so loud and angry? Well, not for nothing.
Not for nothing, exactly. So from based on this heritage and the indigenous aspect of all these different cultures that are part of the Puerto Rican national, mentality. What's the show? Tell me about the show that you're doing. Is it a solo show? Is it a group show? Or
It's a group show. And the name of it, as you mentioned before, I'll say it in Spanish first: Mami, el ogre y Pedrito. Mommy, the ogre, and little Pedro. Although I, at 6'7", was never little. I was young, but never little. And that's another thing. Because I'm this tall, everyone always tells me I can't be Puerto Rican. I have to be mixed. Are you from the same mother and father? Why are you so white looking? Why are you so tall? How come you don't speak English with an accent? And then that's from the mainland. This is from like Anglos, I'd say, or people who don't. Now, Hispanics attack me for other reasons. Why do you think you're white? I never call myself Pete, Peter, Junior. I always introduce myself as Pedro, constantly. And here, I live in Jackson Heights, Queens. People here, I will speak to them in English, in Spanish, they will answer me in English, apologizing for the fact that they're not speaking that well. I'm like,
oh,
but I'm talking to you in your own language. And then when they figure it out, it's almost like a light goes off in their head, and they believe for some reason that I was tricking them or, joking with them. No, 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 no. So the piece begins, Mami, el ogre y Pedrito, with me exploring my life in two cultures, the history, the people, the things that affected. I start, as we talked about, interrupting Bruno Bettelheim's analysis. From there, I move away from his Eurocentric Freudian conclusions to find answers in my own dual culture. Because I'm thinking in two. Left side of my brain is in English, right side is Spanish. So I have to figure it out. How does it work for me? I'm in the middle of it all. We have we're having two dancers, one female, one male, represent my mother and my father in the piece. Alice, the director, is directing choreography. She's a choreographer. We're both co-writing the show. We'll probably have someone to be like a secondary character who'll take up the other male characters. Bruno Bettelheim will say his stuff on stage. We may have a musician. We'll have another female to take in like the other roles, maybe play a grandmother or an aunt or any kind of female role. So that's how the show started about. And the show is what Alice and I called a talk dance docu-whimsy piece. It's not dancical.
right.
In a dancical, as opposed to a musical moves the song. The music moves the show along. In a dancical, it's movement. It's the dance. It's the rhythm. For example, I wouldn't be here if my parents hadn't met because of a song, because of a particular style of dance. In Puerto Rico, small town, a dance on Saturday night. My father was there waiting for his fiancée, Maria Rafaela. His favorite song came on. He loved a particular style of dance, and he was very particular of how he danced and who he danced with. He says he looked around the room to see if there was anybody who knew how to dance the song. He saw one girl, my mother, doing what he calls the right steps. Okay. And that's how they got together.
Oh,
So in the piece, their meeting will be a dance sequence
oh,
that will
nice.
be underlined with words. And then movement will interrupt voiceovers, and bomba music, Puerto Rican plena music, and salsa will interrupt everything. So then I try to go away from, as I said, Bruno Bettelheim's analysis, Eurocentric and Freudian, and just just explain how that affects us, how that affects me, how that affects our relation with our poor relation, the United States poor relation with the United States. For example, we are a Cinderella to the mainland. We are Cinderella. And my father, unfortunately, when we develop his story and when you hear about it, he was a Cinderfella. He was given up by his biological parents. He moved in with an aunt who then he became the caretaker to our great grandmother. He was treated not the same because he was a cousin, not a sibling. Then he went to live with his other aunt who hated him because my father was dark skinned. She was white. So she hated her mother, who was also dark skinned.
Oh my
They
God.
were forced to live in the basement of a room under the house and couldn't come out when visitors came. Couldn't say they were related. If they were seen, they were the help. So it's just like, so within our own, we have issues to tackle as well.
Yeah.
And this whole racism thing and everything on the island basically came, when the Americans took over, we were autonomous, living under Spanish rule, but we could rule ourselves. We could vote for, we had trade, we had our own money. That's another thing. People nowadays, they ask us what kind of money they use in Puerto Rico. Okay. We're American. It's the same here as it is there. Do you need a visa to visit the island? No. Does it snow in the mountains in Puerto Rico? Holy crap. Another thing, I'm not a beach person. I'm also, whenever I tell people I'm from Puerto Rico and I'm going to visit the island, they're like, oh, you can have so much fun on the beach. I'm a mountain person. I don't know anything about beaches.
Me neither.
I know nothing about beaches. My first seafood was on the mainland. I first tasted fish on here. So it's like, my experience of being Puerto Rican. So it's just like, also, we have all different kinds, man. I'm a hillbilly is what we're called. We are from the mountains, farmers, townies, but I know nothing about beaches. And I also want to explain to people, especially our own theater community. I haven't really seen like a production on a cultural level. Maybe John Leguizamo's Latin History for Them. Okay, great. But that was covering all of the Latin countries. Right? This one is more Puerto Rican in particular. But also to explain to people what a New Yorican is. A lot of people ask what a New Yorican is. Mm-hmm. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. New, York, Ricans, pretty spelled.
So tell me, because I'm ignorant to a lot of the cultural things, but what is Latin X? What is that?
Latinx has taken the gender out of the phrase. For example, Latin, if you understand Spanish, it is female or male. El hombre, la chica. El niño, la niña. What people have decided nowadays, especially when they're like not non-binary and things like that, those terms, they've taken the sex out. So you're considered Latinx, which is a gender term. Although some people don't use that. Right. Some people prefer Hispanic. I prefer Hispanic because I am Hispanic. I am from Spanish lineage. I am Hispanic. Most of Latin America is considered Latino because they are from Latin America. More indigenous than Spanish, they are considered Latino. Gotcha. So there's like three different phrases going around. But Latinx seems to be the new modern phrase that everybody's choosing to identify as.
Yeah, I gotcha. Well, it's very commonly used these days. That's why I wanted to.
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere, exactly. So this sounds like
I had to figure out what it was at first. Sorry. All these phrases keep on coming up. You got to keep up, man. It's hard. It's hard.
You got to keep up with everything. It's really all the time, right? Well, listen, Pedro, it sounds like a great show. I'm really excited. I look forward to seeing it and photographing it. And yeah, definitely. And I'll list below this interview the place and the time and everything, all the details, and a link to the tickets.
Should I give the name of the place and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, we're performing December 3rd. 2 shows, 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And it's on Arts on Site Inc. at 12 St. Mark's Place. Or you can go to the website, artsonsite.org.
Terrific.
I hope to see everybody there.
All right.
And remember, it's a work in progress.
Yes.
Our full production will be in December of 2024 is what we're shooting for.
Nice.
So this is just the first work in progress, and it will be the 2 pieces. You will see Rapunzel Rants again, and I'm in that, and then it leads into Mami, El Ogre Pedrito.
So
Mami, the Ogre.
2 for the price of 1.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Muchas
No
gracias,
more Barbie
señor.
Oppenheimer here, right?
Muchas gracias, muchas gracias. We'll
De
talk to you
nada, de
soon,
nada,
yeah?
chico.
Take care.
You too. Thanks for everything, man.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye-bye.